Hello, welcome to Quackalope. This is On the Hunt.
A brand new series we're doing focused on indie publishers and, well, I know the name Tim Eisner might be known by a lot of you. I mean, he has had some fantastic games. This is actually coming through a smaller publisher here.
Yeah.
I believe the last game they put out was Canopy.
Yep.
And then before that was March of the Ants.
Yep.
Which I will, just saying this here publicly, be asking them for a copy of, because it's been a game that I've wanted to try for a long time, but I've never actually been able to like sit down and get to the table. We did coverage for Canopy back in the day, really loved it, and here we are with Leaf.
Yes, Leaf is the new game that they're coming out with. Kickstarter actually went live on the 27th, I believe.
So it's up right now.
Yep, you should definitely follow the link down below, but after you finish watching this would be...
This series is called On the Hunt. It's a thing that West and I are working on. We both have a passion for weird little indie projects, and we're trying to make sure our company stays focused on highlighting some unique gems in the board game space while we still talk about and shout about the giant, obnoxious, miniature-based campaign games that I also love.
Gotta love those too.
This series is going to give you an overview of what the game is, talk about what we think is unique about it, why we decided to pull it over here onto the main channel to shout about it and to show it off. And then also, just so you know, these videos
Never paid for.
they're never on the hunt. If you see the tagline On the Hunt, it's not a sponsored video. Perfectly happy to do sponsored videos, especially when we're covering giant big box miniature releases. But we have a policy here at Quackalope that we don't charge the little guy, because I believe, and still am, in many ways, the little guy.
This is true.
How do you play Leaf, Wes?
So, Leaf is a beautiful nature-esque game where leaves are falling from the trees as we're preparing for the season, starting in spring, going into summer, fall, and winter. You are working to try and prepare yourself, gather your acorns, so to speak, as victory points for endgame, and you're placing leaves down on this beautiful board, creating contact points. The contact points allow you to use the actions for the basic colors of the leaves that are already down. The more corners, contact points that you touch, the more actions you'll be able to take on your turn.
It's got a little bit of spatial reasoning to it, but honestly, it just creates a really beautiful pattern. And every single one of the contact points has a little plip there at the end, which took me a second to notice when we first started diving into this. However, it does make it a really interesting puzzle to solve, depending on the shape and the style of leaf you have. Fitting them into the right area to get as much resource or as much action economy as possible is its own unique little spatial puzzle.
Absolutely.
But once you've done that, you start taking actions based off the colors you have. If you connect with a green leaf, you're going to be able to draw a leaf card, which is going to allow you to play more leaves and potentially get some bonus actions in accordance with them.
And if you run out of leaf cards, you lose 3 points and have to grab 2 more. So
It's not a thing you want to do.
Definitely not.
If you connect with an orange leaf, you're going to be able to collect an animal card. Animal cards are going to be scored in sets based off of the season that you've played through. So let's say I have both of those ravens and that one fox over here in my den. Well, once the season changes, which is how the game starts to escalate because the sun has passed around enough times to continue moving it forward, I will collect and hibernate the animal I have the most of.
Correct.
Meaning those 2 ravens would lock in and I would score for them, whereas the fox would be retired.
It'd be waiting here for the next season.
In the wilderness is what I always like to say. If you connect with the brown area, you're going to be able to move up 1 space on this tree board.
Yes.
And go ahead and gain the according resources.
Correct. Then there's different paths. You can choose which option you wanted to head towards, but there's also wonderful resources along the way that allow you to do extra bonus things.
Now, the yellow leaves are going to be crowded very quickly. This is how you score a nice little chunk of victory points in the game, but it's also how you escalate endgame. Yellow points are going to give you suns.
Yes.
Suns are going to be converted into endgame progression. You're going to be moving up the season track across the top of the animal board there, and every time you cross one of those little dotted lines, you will be scoring and retiring animals, and when you eventually get to the end of that track, that triggers end game, with all players having an equal number of actions. And another added bonus, every time you move up that sun track, you're going to score a little arsenal of victory points. And then finally, we have the red leaf here. The red leaf is going to deal with clusters of mushrooms. It'll allow you to either place down a mushroom or flip over a mushroom, making a tiny little mushroom cluster. Clusters score you based off of, well, clusters.
Yes.
at the end of the game.
Yes, you can take a baby mushroom and turn it into an adult mushroom, and adult mushrooms will score based on the clusters that they have. The other way you can gain mushrooms is by playing 2 of the exact same leaf card to grab that leaf, and that starts you off with a mushroom already on it.
But that also begins to exhaust your hand of leaf cards, which means you're going to need to make sure you refill it strategically.
Yes.
There's a lot of cool things happening here, a ton of people already backing the campaign, and honestly, for a game that is as accessible as this is, it has a lot of little areas, little levers to like pull and print. And the production's beautiful. I mean, we're sitting in front of a prototype, for the record, so these are thin, this board is thin. Everything's way thinner than it's going to be.
Yes.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the concept of this game. The leaves covering the terrain of the table, the mushrooms growing on top of them, how beautiful the artwork is, giving this old, picturesque, like 1960s storybook feel to me. Like,
it's beautiful.
It's the golden edge of board games is kind of like my thought, right?
Yeah. I think it really does make a beautiful table presentation.
Yeah. So this is Leaf. This is an overview of Leaf. West, since we've hunted this game down, what makes it stand out? Why did you want to go ahead and collect it?
So I actually visually saw it, and I thought that it had a really unique table presentation. I thought it's such a cool concept to have the leaves sitting out like this. And I'm not normally a polyomino type of person. I don't generally find placing things and fitting them into spots to be an interesting way.
Messy, like a floor of leaves.
Which I think is what actually makes this work, because it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to touch and have good situations. But I love the fact that your actions in-game are solely based on the leaves that you pick up and the placement that you put down. So your action can be big and huge. You could get potentially 6 or 7 different actions in one move. Or you could have a terrible situation where, yeah, okay, I've only got 2 this turn. And I think that part of it makes it elegantly crunchy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo right there. I think this is probably... I'd be hard-pressed to think of games that fall into the genre of incredibly satisfying Euro, like little action economy like games that are so accessible and so naturally, organically inviting.
Yeah.
It's this weird little hybrid space, and I could really see this game taking a whole community of people by storm.
Absolutely.
I could get people to sit down and play this game who would shy away from me saying that it was like an action economy game, it was a set collection game, it was a kind of resource. It's not really resource management, I suppose. Like,
not necessarily.
Touch of like spatial reasoning. I think there's a lot of people that could enter into this game not realizing just how deep elements of it can be. While at the same time, even while playing, still just thoroughly enjoying the experience.
Having a great time.
It's heavy but light.
Heavy but light.
It's small but accessible. It's quick to play but strategic.
Yep.
I don't know of a lot of games that feel quite like that in my roster.
I 100% agree with you. And that have such beautiful table presence.
It's gorgeous. Well, that's why it's so accessible.
Yeah.
I do not need to convince someone to be willing to play this with me.
Agreed.
The game needs to be good for them to continue playing it with me, which luckily it is.
Yep.
But I do not need to convince someone to. All I need to do is set it up, and it sets up quickly, and it just looks gorgeous.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm also, though, a big sweetheart for nature. I'm a big sweetheart I love fall. It's one of my favorite seasons. So, like, this whole scattering of leaves, like, we're moving into October. One of the things I want to do desperately, which I don't think we're going to be able to do this year, but maybe next year, is I've always wanted to just drive through the north.
And see the fall colors.
I hiked through the Appalachian Trail up in the fall colors, and I remember just swaths of orange and yellow and red, and these pockets of like maples that just glow in the horizon line.
Absolutely.
Like,
it's beautiful.
It's incredible. And here in Ohio, you get beautiful, Ohio, Philadelphia, Virginia, or not Philadelphia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia. You get beautiful leaves and beautiful seasons, but it's nothing like New Hampshire. And so this game gives me that little edge of every time we get into the season, this would be one of those that I'd want to pull off. And maybe like sit down and play at a picnic table and have the world around me also reflect the thing that I'm playing.
That would be cool. That would be very cool.
Any other things you want to highlight? Other things you want to talk about?
I really enjoyed the game, and I continue to want to pull it off the shelves, and to say that about a prototype is something special.
Yeah. So that's this series. Like we said, this is On the Hunt. This is going to be a new series that we're doing here. Look for that tagline. Hit that subscribe button down below. Pay attention for these videos because these are always going to be little indie gems, things that we think are special. And trust me, a lot of them do not make it onto the channel.
Yes.
And I'm going to be honest, a lot of them actually slide over to our Quack & Co.
Yeah.
Great quality games, but things that we just didn't want to dedicate an entire episode to here.
Right.
This is reserved for those games that we think stand out in a unique way, are competing for a position on our own personal game shelves, or we think are going to do something unique in the industry. And I think Leaf is doing that.
Agreed.
With that being said, West.
Yes.
We have not figured out a good way to end these videos yet.
We haven't.
No,
you know,
we
the
haven't.
last time we did one of these, we were talking about how they needed to go to the Kickstarter link, right? We were going to put that at the bottom.
Oh, it is down there.
Yeah.
It is down there.
And then we talked about how they should probably do the
last time, though?
the subscribe thing, right?
No.
No, we don't. You don't need to subscribe. Just with the bell.
Yeah.
We did the bell ringing.
They could ring the bell.
They could.
Yeah, that's certainly an option.
You know, how do other people end their videos?
Well, they do so professionally.
Yeah.
That's, I mean...
So we should probably come up with like a good professional... Should we do a song, like an outro song? Or should we come up with some sort of like an animal noise? Because, you know, we're Quackalope, so you can make a quacking sound and I can make an antelope sound. What does an antelope sound like? Is that?
I think that's about...
I don't know that people are gonna like that.
What?
It might be a little jarring.
But it was your idea.
It was my idea, but I'm kind of like verbalizing everything that falls out of my brain. It's got, you know, verbal diarrhea.
There's not a lot falling out of your brain, apparently.
It is very minimal.
It's a slow trickle.
It's true.
That is embarrassing.
A very slow trickle. That is
everything that was in your brain over the last 30 seconds of you talking?
It was.
I've got like a constant flood of like a dozen things going through my brain.
That's because you have monkeys that don't ever stop.
Yeah.
And I've killed most of my monkeys with my college years. So, that's probably why I have a much more silent
Do you all
aspect.
have perpetual racing thoughts? Because I can always identify about 3 things going on in my mind.
Or are you in the camp where you can literally say, when someone asks you, what are you thinking about? And you can say, nothing.
I have no idea how that works.
I can do that all day and it's a beautiful thing.
Can you?
I
how
can
does
turn
that?
it
Okay,
off.
explain that to me. How can you be thinking? Because I'm in the camp of someone can say, "What are you thinking about?" And if I don't answer 3 things, I've kept something from you.
Oh,
I
that's
genuinely
good knowledge.
no, like I mean that. Like I am always perpetually thinking about 3 things at the same time. Like right now I'm thinking about the fact that we're having this conversation. I'm thinking about the fact that we could transfer this conversation into a standalone video on the channel because it'd be an interesting brunch topic. I'm thinking about the fact that I'm fidgeting and not trying to identify that too much. I'm thinking about how long this portion of the video should go on because it's entertaining and I find this conversation interesting, but I don't want I don't want the video to stretch too far beyond what would be normal. And then I was also thinking about the fact that I could go through my thoughts and describe them all to you while I'm talking about this portion of it. So there's like 4 things that were occupying my mind within that one little pocket of time.
That's good.
And that is constant for me.
So mine, I think I have no issues with turning my brain off at certain times. To be fair, I have multiple situations where I'm going through that same conversation that you just have.
All the time.
But I have ways that I can turn my brain completely off and I can just sit there and stare.
I've never tried it.
I've not tried. Well, I do take Adderall, which is kind of like
pretty adjacent.
It's adjacent. But I can turn my brain off and just have this 1,000-yard stare and I can concentrate on nothing. And beautiful nothing is there. And all I do is just think about quiet and still and nothing. And just allow my brain to go through. It might. It might be. I don't know. But it was one thing that I worked really hard on in my younger years was to be able to turn things off.
I'm sorry for invalidating you. I'm really proud of you. That's pretty incredible. Meditation is an important skill that I don't have, I guess.
It is a skill. I think at times there's negative points to it because I would love to be able to turn my brain back on at a higher level.
You want the opposite as well?
I would like to be able to go, hey, let's ramp it up a little bit.
Interesting.
And my brain just goes, you've got a governor now. You can only go so far.
Fascinating. People are weird.
We are very weird.
Thanks for watching. It's been a On the Hunt for Leaf. Hopefully you've went and checked out the Kickstarter and stopped watching this stuff. Well,
I mean, it's interesting, though. I wonder how many people in the comments are going to talk about meditation, and then those people who have no idea that this lasts 15 minutes, just 3?
They're going to talk about it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's possible. And then you're going to be comments like, why are you talking about meditation?
Maybe.
And it'll be because of this.
Bye?
Yeah. Thanks, guys.